going on, guys? Welcome back to RC Every Day. It's kind of become the week of CENracing. It sounds like it's a beach party in Vegas or something. No, week of CENracing, because all these new products. So last video we installed the bumpers. We've got the new plastic bumpers. Put a link to that video somewhere right now. And today we're going to look at the lift kit. So now with the bumpers, we got the rear frame extension. It's the whole back section of the chassis extends out so the bumper will mount like a real truck. And now we've got the CKD 1000. This is the F450 Super Duty Custom Truck Lift Conversion Kit. So this is basically the suspension package off of the blue truck, off of the 250s. Gets the drop down brackets and the parallel 4-link with the Watts link, which keeps your axle perfectly centered through all its range of motion. So that's the main big improvement of it. I don't know yet about tire and wheels or anything, so we're just going to do the lift to start with, and we'll see what comes. And then the video after this, we haven't done yet, will be the RGB, the rock lights. Figured there's no point in putting those on right now if we're going to have to do a whole bunch of stuff on the chassis, because that's got actual nice little mounts and clips that go into holes in the chassis to lock the wiring in and stuff like that. So it's a real clean setup. So let's get started. Open this up, see what all pertains to this product. Alright, so this isn't quite as bad as it looked like. It's a lot of parts. I've seen entire chassis kits with less components, but first step is we have new shocks. We have longer shocks. These are the new ones with the dummy overflow reservoir, whatever you call that. That is, every bag is labeled. So we got A, bag B is links, C is shorter links, I'm guessing for the front, D is mounts and the Watts link setup. So that's our upper centering mount. E is rod ends. F is servo arm steering changes. Okay, so we're going to change the steering like the F250 as well. E, F, G is the battery mount, the new style, and a rear cross member. I guess that attaches to. And H is the metal parts. H is our drop down bracket, new drive shaft. So I'm guessing we're going to do away with the 2-piece drive shaft. It looks like we're just going to 2 solid drive shafts and bag of shock oil. So yeah, we're just going to get started. They start out with building the shocks, which is good because I hate building shocks, and we'll get them out of the way early. Next step is building the rods, the suspension links themselves. Third step is building the Watts link links. It's 2 more small rods, front and rear. Getting that set up. Sway bar extensions, so there's even, they really got, it's like a real car. They got everything. Then bag F, front suspension links. We just work our way front to back. We do have to change the servo horn, and because the suspension is different, we change, well, the steering link is different. It mounts actually on the axle itself. So you come from your servo horn down to a pivot arm, and then you attach to your drag link. It's kind of a neat setup. Works well on the other truck. Then it's the drop down brackets. So that just goes all in order like it shows. This shows taking the entire front of the chassis apart. It shares holes. I'm sure they've engineered this pretty well because everything they've built has been engineered pretty well. And yeah, battery mount last. Put your shocks on, and you got to lift it at F450. There's even blank pages to take notes. So it looks pretty straightforward. It's just going to be a little bit of work with basically rebuilding the entire chassis. Holy crap, that was a massive undertaking. I didn't know what to fully expect with that. Think lift kit, you know. But you basically tear the entire chassis completely apart. Pull the axles off first, do all the changes to the axles, and then it walks you through taking the entire chassis completely apart for this lift kit. I'll explain more of that in a minute if you didn't watch that last bit of the chaos. That was a ton of work. And look at this. This is what I have left over. I've got enough rods, hardware, shocks to almost build another truck. So it's great for me, because that's how we got started building the rat rods, was having lots of spare parts sitting around. So our next rat rod may be based off of CENracing instead of RC 4-wheel drive. But man, that was a ton of work. I mean, I legitimately have about 4.5, almost 5 hours in this, and that was not because of the filming. That's just a lot of work. All right, so it's not just bolting on some brackets on the bottom and doing the suspension. This truck has a carrier bearing, has a 2-piece rear drive shaft because it is so long. We actually have to move the transmission center in the truck, still a little bit shorter in the front than it is in the rear, the drive shafts and everything. But yeah, it's more traditional, like a regular crawler now. You have everything in the middle, drive shaft straight out to the axles. The front took forever because it's got a completely different steering setup. You have to flip the servo, and then a couple times I made some mistakes and flipped the servo, and I didn't flip it the right way. I had to flip it off the mount. So the arm is on that side and it reaches. You've got the Watts links, which are tedious, to say the least, especially when you're trying to bolt it to the chassis, because you have to mount your 4 links first, and then you're underneath the truck trying to get around the axle and trying to get the stuff. But it does track perfectly straight up and down. There is no side-to-side tracking issues whatsoever now. The first, I'd say, hour and a half was just putting the rods together. You build the shocks, and then you have to put the main rods together. Then you have your steering rods, and then you have your rods for your sway bars. You have longer rods for that. I think there was 18 rods I had to make. You have to make Watts link rods. You have 2 on each end. So it's a lot of little tedious stuff with your sore fingers. I'm missing some skin on the index finger now. But yeah, I ended up having to take the bumpers off completely. And then once you get ready to mount it all to the chassis, you have to move all this. You have to basically disassemble the entire chassis. You have to move all 4 of the cross members. Well, 5 counting that. And luckily, I got to the end and I was trying to put the drive shafts in. I had this one up 1 hole. So it was easy. Move those back, and everything lined up and jived right. And the wheelbase fits with the body, luckily. But yeah, that was a challenging build. That was not for the beginner. Let's put it that way. It was challenging. I mean, I've engineered my own chassis, built stuff from scratch, and this was a challenge. The instructions are clear, but they're not. The order of it confused me a lot of times. It'd have you do something so far in advance, and there's a lot of little nuances like these rods. Your lower rods on front and back, so you got 2 different lengths, so you can't mix them up, have different ends for the bottoms on the inside. And you have to remember that 20 steps later, so it ties in with that crossbar that we put on the bottom, and it has the right ball end in the rod end. Just so many little nuances. And these shocks actually are some kind of bypass system. I don't understand how it works. There is a vent from this cap to this cap, and this is sealed, and there's a screw with an O-ring inside of it, and there's a screw with an O-ring in the end of it. I don't know how it works. They do feel really good, and this truck will flex very nicely without the sway bars. I tested it. I should have talked about it, but while I had it off, but I ain't taking the sway bars off again. I've had the sway bars off enough this week. But yeah, it will flex nicely. I played around with a little bit of that in the footage. When we first mounted up the 4-link and got the Watts links attached, there you can see it's as tall as the other one. It's yeah, that's big. So the next thing we've got for this F450 is the RGBs, the rock lights, and it's definitely good we waited for that, because you don't want to wire that on your chassis if you're going to do the lift, because you have to tear the chassis all apart. And yeah, so I definitely did that last. I think that's going to work out well. But The only thing we need now is some bigger tires. Definitely need some bigger tires on that. So we're definitely not going to run it in this video yet. I've got some of the electronics disconnected and stuff because of having to remove the servo and all that for this install. And we got the RGB, left the receiver box open because we have to tie into that and wire all up and down both frame rails of the truck. So yeah, once we get the lights installed, then we'll get everything up and running and actually get this thing out and see what it does. With the lift, it's not really a great tow truck, but we need some bigger tires, I think. And yeah, it's setting up pretty high. And one more thing, if you're putting this kit on your truck, just you got to have a caliper. You got to have something to measure distances of your hardware, the length of your hardware, and the distances between on the rod ends and things like that. Because all the little rods, the sway bar links, steering link, and stuff like that, it has to be certain lengths. You know, like one on the 17.5 mil, and you got 5 rods you put together in one part. One's 7 or like 10.5, one's 2 or 10. And they're all oriented different ways. They have different ends that go on different ends. They have to face. Your rear sway bar links are different from your front sway bar links. And yeah, these trucks are very technical. But again, guys, thank y'all for watching. And if you're interested in any of the CENracing stuff, please use the link below. It helps the channel out. Greatly appreciate it, guys. And until next time, keep it scale. I'll see y'all in the next video.